Welcome. My name is Gena Timberman, and you are listening to Timber People, a podcast about people who, like timber, are strong, build and create, who gather us together like fuel that feeds fire. People who support structures of our community that uplift and protect. Welcome to the show. I have my dear friend Kristy Boone here with me today. Welcome.
Hello.
We've been talking about this for a long time, and I tell you, I know Kristy, I know Kristy through mutual friends. We met about 12 or so years ago.
Maybe longer.
And we have a lot of adventures together, and I know we have many more ahead of us. And I'd like to say that Kristy is one of these friends that you cannot see. Say I don't see her for a year, and then I connect with her, and it's like we've never skipped a beat. So I'm so glad that we're talking today. And I just usually laugh throughout all of our conversations. And so I just love having you on the show today. Thank you.
Yay, I'm excited. We won't talk about all the adventures because it might not be appropriate, but we can talk about a lot of them at least.
You're like,
I'm
you
excited
didn't have
to be
me
here.
sign a release.
Yeah, probably need to do that, I feel like.
Oh, man, I almost don't know where to start with exploring all the cool things that you're doing. And like I said, we've had many adventures. But I know that you and your professional life do a lot of awesome things. And again, just witnessing the work that you're doing and how you're connecting to individuals and also to community as a person, but also through your business is really awesome. Can you talk a little bit about the type of work that you're doing with Premium Impact?
Yes. I have the consulting business. It's been in practice since 2014, and it's twofold. One is digital marketing focused, and I like doing that because I like helping people stay relevant with technology and building their business and having really strong revenue opportunities as well as exposure for their brand. But my passion, like the soul passion, and that's the conversation we've had repeatedly.
Right.
That is around doing the workshops that are focused on communication, like upskilling the soft skills of communication, bringing in empathy, trust, collaborative thought processes, working on conflict resolution, effective communication. And then, as we've also discussed, based on working with the program Breathe for Change, that's now the master's track for the transformative teaching and leadership. That is focused on mindfulness and also equitable learning, accessible learning, making sure that everyone who is along for the journey with that side of my business is being met where they are so they can bring their best self forward and advance themselves in leadership or as being part of the community, or just finding their own inner strength and being able to operate from a position of strength instead of being put on the heels by people pushing them back and them not knowing how to respond to the world.
Right. That's empowering. You know, we think about our connection to ourselves, to our friends, to the community, the world around us. If you look at it like concentric circles, you know, and as you empower the individual, you really strengthen those kind of circles around that from, again, friends and then family and then the businesses and the ways in which we interact with the broader community and the world. I love it.
Yeah. And it's such a big need. And what is good, if there are good things that came from the experiences in 2020, what is at least one of the good things is people are having more intelligent conversations around the need to be connected, right? And around this is something I've been doing for almost 9 years. And just now people are starting to go, oh my goodness, this is really critical work. And it's like, yeah, I know, I've been enjoying it the whole time. It makes a difference instantly in people's lives. And then now people are just like, oh, we need this more. And they're looking for social emotional learning coaches, and they're looking for people to come in and work with teams on mindfulness. And they're looking for people to come in and work with empathic engagement in general. But it was just so odd until people realized being isolated was bringing out all of those things about ourselves that we didn't realize we hadn't healed from all of the past traumas or whatever that looks like. And in isolation, you always feel that more. But when you're part of a group or you're busy all the time, you don't really understand how deeply it's impacting you and the way that you're connecting with others or not connecting with them. And then now that people felt it like inherently all throughout themselves, they're like, ooh, maybe we need to think of smarter ways to do this.
Absolutely. There's a great deal of need for smarter ways to do many things. And I know that I would benefit from your trainings. I know a lot of people, if they took it, I would still benefit from your trainings. The world needs people with greater sense of connection and empathy. But I have to say that I really appreciate the approach that you have to focus on well-being and creating safe spaces for conversation around wellness and well-being. And I know you do that through crucial conversations, through the structure of your workshops. And you also do this really through your physical activity too. I mean, you are licensed in that approach for yoga and with different, wellness approaches, as well as in your coaching capacity. And I just think that's just such a well-rounded, connecting not only with the spirit, but with the mind and with the body and with that social and emotional approach is really essential to that balanced being. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's fun. And all of us are imbalanced in some way in different areas. I read this really great thing. I was going through a productivity training, like it was a 3-month program. And there was something they said during that time, maybe it was during one of our actual online interactions, but someone mentioned, if you're truly balanced in life, you're not growing somewhere. Because for some growth to happen, there has to be a sense of imbalance because you're pushing yourself out of like a normal kind of comfort area, right? You have to get into the growth circle of discomfort, not like pushing it to the unhealthy level of discomfort. And I thought that is really brilliant, but being able to bring as much balance as possible so that as those growth moments offer themselves and present themselves and we take advantage of them, being able to have all the tools to say, well, if I am doing these pieces and my mind is at least in a space where I know how to control it if my thoughts are racing, or if I can connect back to my breath, which is the proof that we're alive, like that is the gift. Doesn't matter what you look at it from a faith perspective, how you were created or got here. That is the thing that reminds you that you were actually alive. And so why aren't we leveraging that more to give ourselves space in moments where we need it the most? So we can, instead of approach things from a reactionary perspective, take a beat, like breathe into it and think, what is my body doing right now? Why? And I might perceive this person or this situation as a threat to my well-being. At the same time, maybe it isn't. Maybe this is just tapping into something I've experienced in the past. And if I react to this person or this situation with the same way I did then to survive that moment, that's not accomplishing anything. Then that is the bad, like discomfort growth, like circle, right? And so it's fun to be able to give people permission to accept their own space and their own breath, and then just kind of be part of the world from that perspective instead of always being in everybody else's space. And what do they need and what do they want and what are they thinking of me? And we're all going to think that at some level anyway. I think that on a daily basis, like, well, if I do this, they're going to think this, and then I have to step back. So
it's that power of presence and being proactive rather than reactive. And, something I've really struggled with in my life is, keeping that balance, but also being a people pleaser. And I know that you really, we've had some really incredible conversations around this topic as well as others in that well-being, wellness realm. And I have to say that in today's world, also after, pandemic and everything, that focus on mental health and awareness. I know with our Oklahoma Museums Association, we have a well-being committee, and I'm really appreciative that the conversation is out there and for advocates like yourself that are really present in the community and as a friend to just have a really great dialogue, discussions about this important need in our lives.
That's really nice that you have the wellness committee too. Are they responsible when they come together? Is their objective to find ways that employees are able to access wellness, or what does that look like?
the OMA Wellbeing Committee really serves a role to advise on the resources that can live on the OMA website to really share. And thankfully, we have very resourceful individuals that, from the Oklahoma Museums Association to the Oklahoma Arts Council to the Chickasaw Nation, has been an incredible, resource through their division that has a really important focus on mental health and wellness. And it's really to connect people up to the resources that could be helpful in their personal or professional lives and with the museums and the institutions around the state, really.
That's amazing. So it's bigger than just for the employee network and the museums. It's for the community at large.
Right.
That's amazing.
Any way that that the resources can serve to benefit the world around us. And, that's what museums do, is really connect us up and create safe spaces and middle ground spaces for communication and connecting. And so whatever we can provide as a resource on the website, that has become really important. And I know that, in your workshops, that's really been that safe space for people to unplug from the work itself and to plug into ways that they relate to one another and can really express themselves through communication and respecting one another and their place in this world.
Yeah, it's nice. I think what's fun about doing the workshops is, one, because it's interactive, everything that's interactive from the exercise perspective. Viola Spolin is the creator of Improvisation for Theater. And she has this huge book. And my improv mentors, they gave me that book a long time ago, like when I first started my journey. And there are hundreds of exercises in there. And they're not used to teach improvisation in terms of a comedic side, but they were used then by her. And she has this well of interactive, like, here we are, we're in this moment, we're trying to accomplish this thing. And her goal from the beginning was to create more authentic engagement in theater, because everything was very, right, this is back in the 30s. So you're doing that, and she created this way for people to play together, to have fun together. So everything that's interactive is based on, I say, 6 foundational improv principles, which the yes and, you accept and build, the if then, if that's true, what else can we build together? Your partner is a genius. There are no mistakes. Be in the moment, share focus. And our lives are so chaotic and busy, and people are really connected to technology, and we're getting constant information back to back to back to back. There isn't a lot of being in the moment and being present from the perspective of, wow, we're here, we're connected in this moment. It'd be like us doing this podcast interview, but we're talking to Bridget the whole time, turning around being like, hey, or I'm like, look at this, it's so pretty. And it doesn't have anything to do with what we're doing, but that's how our brains work right now. So there's that side of it. That's the foundational piece. And then Kubler-Ross, who established the grief cycle, the 5 stages of grief, they have a change curve model, the two of them presented, and it's basically from the point of a change being offered, there is a complete shock. Like, all of us, when we're presented with change, we have a shock mode. And from there, we go to denial, we go to anger, we go all these different things. And the point of these exercises is to say, look, what does it look like and feel like if we are being more empathic to one another, if we are creating space to actually be present together, if we are having more intelligent conversations around conflict and expressing our needs using a nonviolent communication tool, which is an amazing tool, by the way. I learned it through Breathe for Change. Right. Love it. And so at that point, then we're taking it all the way to integrating the behavior on site. So it's not just a lecture or let's role play. It's truly experiencing what your body is doing when it goes from shock to integration within a workshop of these behavior changes together. And then the result is people going, holy moly, I didn't know what Fred felt like in his body when he does this role because I'm so busy focused on my role. Or it's great for families. It's great. I've worked with special needs. I've worked with adults. I've worked with children. And across the board, just those moments of joy, because you're playing together too the whole time. But there are very heated, very intense moments as well. Having discussions that are open around inclusion and what does that really mean? Because it's such a thrown around word. And then what does equity mean? And what is accessibility if we're really discussing it? And how do we make sure everyone who enters an organization or a community structure. How does everyone have the same start and the same access to the skills and to tools and to resources, because they might be far better in a position that somebody else already has, because, we know connection is a big thing also in terms of being able to have opportunities. But not everybody starts there, and that's not equitable.
Right.
And so the workshops just give everyone an opportunity to strip through all of that at any level. I've had CEOs all the way down to people who are running the errands on a daily basis. And when they see what that feels like and status shifts and all the different exercises we do together, the conversations around that are beautiful, and it just like fills my soul.
You're really great at it. Those tools, the communication skills, it's important. I mean, because there are times where we all need to draw out of the emotion and really apply skills like that. And that's really great. I know that you're very courageous in doing the work that you do. Crucial conversations aren't always easy. And so taking that on, whether it's in a corporate culture or the conflict within a family or addressing one's own historic trauma, and historic trauma is real. And, that takes a lot of courage. And I have to say, I believe what you do with your improv work, with your performances, it's really incredible what you do. And that takes a great deal of courage and just being in that moment, taking what you have and translating that to a broad community experience that enables people to enjoy and have fun. And, we talk about with, from a cultural perspective, that laughter is medicine. And so the laughter that you provide, I know is good medicine to me. And what does that feel like? And we were talking like you have a gig later. You're supporting so many different nonprofits and community aspects and organizations that through not only your training, but through the entertainment and the joy that you provide in your performances. What is that like?
I was thinking of two things. One, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I was like crazy shy as a kid. Like I would hide.
That is really hard for me to believe.
I would hide.
But I was shy as well.
Oh my God, that makes sense. That's probably why we get along so well. Yeah, I would go hide and read like J.R. Tolkien books and, try not to be found for all day long because I just didn't want to deal with anything. And if people looked at me too long, especially people I didn't know, like my eyes would start watering and I would get I'd start crying. And then fast forward to I was married and a young mom, all the things. And I decided to get into my first round of wellness, which was personal training, teaching yoga, teaching kickboxing, all of that. And it took me a year to pass my first practicum.
Oh, wow.
And all I had to do, a full year, I tried 4 times. And finally on the 4th time, I didn't cry. All I had to do was do a 5-minute mock class for only two of the instructors for this organization who were certifying me. And every time I would get in front of them, I would just start crying and say, I can't do it. I'm not ready.
I mean, that's
So
awesome.
I think that's
that
hilarious.
commitment is courageous. That's not easy.
It wasn't easy, but I
that would
loved
be very
it.
difficult for me to do.
My point is you can do it. And if anybody's thinking about doing improv, at least take one class. Because if I was able to at least overcome that and then start doing improv later, anybody can do it. Anyone.
Oh, it's great.
It feels good. I think for improv, it feels great because I get to build things with a team.
Yeah.
To answer your question. In stand-up, it's fun because
that would be terrifying.
There are,
well,
it's probably why I host more than I actually do real stand-up. I'm just kidding. I love highlighting people and giving a safe space for them to get together because we have really talented stand-up comedians and improvisers on the scene here, which is super cool. I mean, a lot of people travel and do festivals and they do like tours and go nationwide, and all of the talent is here. It's pretty awesome. And so being able to be a part of that, even just being around that creative energy is exciting for me. And then the sketch comedy side is a blast. And the 2 sketch comedy partners that I have are brilliantly talented. I mean, one of them went to OCU and just recently graduated, and that's her focus is the theater side and dance. And then we all met through improv at OKC Improv, actually, here on the scene. Yeah. It feels good. And it's not always funny. I'm not always up there to be funny. Sometimes I'm up there to actually say a thing to make people think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that anytime we have an opportunity to have a captive audience, I think everyone who does that has a responsibility to at least get people to think a little bit differently, right? It can be done in a comedic tone, or within the comedic tone, it can also be like, hey, time out. Let's have a real conversation for a couple of seconds.
Absolutely.
And then go back to whatever it is. I think that the struggle I see and feel when I watch people do comedy is the cheap laughs version of it.
Yeah.
And it's easy for anybody starting out. If they've been doing it less than 3 years, of course, cheap laughs are just going to fuel you. So you're like, oh, I can do a thing, right? But it's like at some point, we all just need to be smarter about it and just make it more meaningful and grow that together. Even here on the scene, grow together. And it's like, then it is laughter as medicine, because it's like we're not taking cheap shots that are almost like bully jabs. We're actually saying things that are about our own lives. And we're finding a funny or interesting way to look at it that can have comedic value. And that's one thing about improv. You take characters on stage, but characters are just tapping into people you know, or tapping into experiences you've had. It's like one time I got to be this horrible person multiple times I've done this. And I'm like, either this is my alter ego and I'm just a really bad person and I don't realize how deep it is, or I just really love tapping into this because I've experienced this person so much in my life. It's like a very cathartic outlet. So where I'm going with that is it's also very cathartic. So sometimes because of tapping into certain experiences or characters, there's like this release that I'm also allowed to have, which is healing in its own way. I like to say comedy is a very cheap form of therapy.
Absolutely.
So
well, then being with your team and working with, I really miss that experience. That's one reason I started this podcast, was to network and to be present with my friends and associates, and to explore with Timber people, the people who build and create and connect with one another and build those bridges in our community, like yourself. And I find that so important. And those pillars you talk about with improv, I know our community, all communities could benefit. The country could benefit from those, and it's, the bullying and that platform for that is not productive. And so the opportunity to heal is really important. I really appreciate that. And I'm always just so intrigued with, anything that you're doing, because it's thoughtful, and you have to be connected to yourself in order to really advocate and to share ways in which others can connect to one another. So it's special for me to see.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
And I know that family is really important, and that you're a gaga and a mom.
Yes.
And we've talked about, it's been so great to connect with you through my niece, baby Andy.
That was so random.
I'm an auntie, and they call me Gigi, and I love it. And it was great to see you at one of their performances.
I was like, I can't believe your niece is in Aaliyah's class.
Yes.
Is she doing it? That starts again next Tuesday.
I believe so, yes. And she's taking on ballet. And so I'm just like, all the new ways and increased ways in which we can connect to one another. And I'm really excited about that. And, we have a lot of fun together, and we have mutual friends. We have stories. I'm like, man, we could go down some rabbit holes with some of our stories, but it's been fun. We have good memories. And like I said, I know that we'll have adventures ahead of us. And what do you have on the horizon for the year and for what you have ahead of you in your career and in all that you're doing?
Well, one, I'll keep doing performance. Like tonight, one of my sorority sisters at Oklahoma Christian, she started this organization, nonprofit called You Shine. And tonight we actually have a fundraiser, and I'll get to go and support that and do some comedy and be ridiculous. But also it's around mental health, and the curriculum they developed, they actually have global connections into it now. but it's specific for teaching youth and their families about signs of depression and then resources around it, and then educating people how to be empowered to not overcome it, but also feel supported and be able to just work through it as they need to work through it individually, and not just such a cookie cutter. This is the thing to fix the thing. And then this is the thing, if that doesn't fix the thing, that might fix this thing that didn't fix this thing. And it's more kind of an individual journey, which I love. And then another thing I'm really looking forward to is continuing my partnership with Side by Side. Right. It's a reentry into the workforce organization. They have partners with education side of it, which is helping enhance their upskilling their communication skills or soft skills to help them with their employment between possible incarceration or some of the other things that they've encountered into the workforce with the employment partners. And we're on cohort 4. We start cohort 5 in the morning, actually. So I'll do the communication side with cohort 5 in the morning. And then in the afternoon, I'll do the mindfulness side with cohort 4, because we've already done the communication piece of it. So looking forward to that continued partnership and hopefully looking into some grant opportunities to grow that curriculum for them specifically. And then also some collaboration with YouShine as an organization in the same capacity. And then interestingly enough, I had told you about recently my father, who also
what a powerful experience.
Mental illnesses and suffered for so long, and then having that company author him reach out as forensic genealogist and say, hey, and then matching the DNA and giving my father, who was a cold case for a year, identity, and giving us an opportunity to process and grave. And so I just talked to their executive director today, and I might have an opportunity to work with their team on the communication pieces of connecting with the families and come out, like, be able to do that from an insightful perspective of this is what it was like to receive that call. Here are considerations, but then also work with the team in a fun way, but a very, impactful way of like, how do we grow that even more? And I don't know if that will come to fruition fully, but the whole group is unbelievable. Also, I can plug them. All 3 of these nonprofits Autham's technically a for-profit, but when they solve these cases, it's highly expensive, and they have to have underwriters or funders for the specific cases. There are thousands of potential cases and not enough money. And then Side by Side, also a nonprofit, and YouShine, all 3 of them. For that matter, OKC Improv is as well. So if anybody hears this and is feeling generous, feel free to help any of those companies.
It's really important.
That'd be great.
I mean, cold cases, this past year, I'm working with a group, the Coalition of Large Tribes, COLT, and was able to participate with law enforcement training for missing and murdered and, Indigenous women and people and cold cases, and training for solving those cases. And I tell you, it's crazy how big of an issue that, our missing and murder in the cold cases, as well as human trafficking, is throughout the country and beyond, and in an Indian country. And so I appreciate you plugging this group. And I really don't think that there are accidents in how the universe brings us together and back together and enables us to cross paths with one another again. And, I really am inspired by your strength and your healing journey with your father and his experience and learning about, his death and identifying him. My mother passed last October, and, so I've been on my journey, and it's been really important and meaningful for me to reconnect with you. And so I appreciate that service you provide as a friend and that support, but also what you're providing to so many families that can really help instill, restore a feeling of peace and understanding and that awareness. And so now if someone wants to find out more about your work and also perhaps any of your performances, what website or what resource would you provide for the listeners to learn about you?
I think LinkedIn is a great way. It's just Kristy K. Boone altogether. And then the website, premiumimpactok.com. And I'm not great about posting my performances ever. I'll try to be better this year. But yes, the goal is to start putting it on my website as well. I have a separate tab specific to those types of things, be it supporting other groups and like, here's where you can find them, or whatever. But OKC Improv has shows all the time, every Friday and Saturday. And sometimes I jump in there and sometimes they don't. So yeah, depends on if they'll have me.
Premium Impact. I feel like that should be like, like a diehard, like a woman warrior superhero.
Thank you. Tell Patrick that.
It's like Impact Hard. Premium Impact. I love it.
Tell Patrick the next time you see him.
Part of the 511s.
He said, a long time ago, back in 2009, there was this whole thing. And then he typed up, I don't know what Premium Impact is, but it sounds like a Steven Seagal film.
I know, right?
I'm like, all right, buddy.
Well, I'm really, again, so happy that you were able to be on the show today. Yay. And thank you for being here, especially before your gig this evening. That's really important. And just appreciate you and love you. Love you. Thank you so much, Kristy K. Boone.
Thank you. And thank you for creating safe spaces for everyone as well. And, just always let me know if you need anything.
Thank you. You as well. Thank you. Yakoki, thank you for joining us. Timber People is brought to you by the Possibilities Podcast platform.